Oh, hold up.
Oh, we're live. There we go. Hello,
Hello,
everybody. We are live. Jack didn't think we were going to be live at
we
that
were
point.
out of storage, it said on StreamYard. So I'm like, oh, whoa, it's not going to start. And then it did start. So you know what? We're here. And yeah, we're ready to roll. Hey, guys.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into GC Live. Kendall Smith and Jack Veltri joining you here. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're all having a great day so far. Jack, we've got a lot to get into. But first and foremost, how are you doing today?
Well, just judging by how we started off the stream, I'm doing good. You know, we're
He said he's
running.
tired.
Yes, we're running on fumes, kind of. You know, it's just, it's been busy. You know, football is picking up. Well, it's been picking up, and basketball's starting to pick up now a little bit. So, we're here. We're ready to talk some football. And I'm always happy to talk with you here. So, how are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you. I am doing well. And everyone, I just want to say, give Jack Veltri some love and give him some kudos because he is working so hard for you all right now. He is working extremely hard because it's crossover season and we know how difficult that can be when you've got basketball going on, you have football going on as well. Baseball stuff is starting to ramp up a little bit here and will continue to ramp up. So yeah, shout out to Jack for all of the hard work that he is putting into Gamecock Central because I know that at this point in the year, it's exhausting, it's tough, it's hard. But hey, only 2 weeks left of the regular season in football, and then we'll see what bowl game South Carolina goes to, and then you are fully in basketball for a little bit before we sprinkle in some baseball. So yeah, it's still going to be a little busy for you over the next few months, but when South Carolina football is winning, everything feels better, right?
It's so much better. It is so much better. Look, I will take this year over last year any day of the week. Literally anyone will tell you the same exact thing. It's been so much more fun to watch this team. Better than anything. Like, if we've seen South Carolina play at this rate at any point recently, like even during 2022, like, yeah, they were scoring at that high clip, but it wasn't like this consistent. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, this has been so much fun, and we're going to talk about it all today. Obviously, Clayton White and Dowell Loggains spoke today, which is something that we always talk about here on the Wednesday edition of GC Live, but we'll talk about the Wofford game coming up. We'll talk about the Missouri game, and let's start with the Missouri game. I did an episode of the recruiting rundown the other day with Wes Mitchell, and I told him I was panicking at multiple moments during that game. I was actually on the sidelines working another game that day at the time that South Carolina was playing Missouri. So I was trying to watch on my phone as everything was going on. And I swear, Jack, my hands were drenched in sweat, like so sweaty. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm freaking out. I'm panicking. There were so many moments in that game. It was such a good game. If you're not a fan of South Carolina or Missouri and you're just a football fan and you were watching that game, you are eating that up because that is classic college football. That's what you want to see. Back and forth, great game, good stuff, game-winning drive by South Carolina. But as a fan and as somebody that went to school at South Carolina, I was very stressed out during multiple points of that game. But the beauty of it is that South Carolina came out on top, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. Like, long gone are those days of the doom and gloom. And Alyssa Lang actually tweeted out, and I thought it was such a great tweet by her. Like, long gone are those days. Like, this is a South Carolina team that is good enough to finish out games, and they did that on Saturday. So were you stressed at any point?
God, talk about that game being a pain in the butt for working. Oh my gosh. Like, all right, it's great for fans, like the tension, the back and forth, all that stuff. But from a writing standpoint, oh my gosh, I had so many mistakes going back through my article. I'm like, oh my God. Because the thing with me is I prepare for both outcomes. Like, I prepare for the worst, I prepare for the best. But since South Carolina scored with like 15 seconds left, I'm like typing away. And I'm like getting my story published as soon as the game's over because that is the standard. And then I go back, I'm like, oh my God, I have South Carolina lost in there. I'm like, no, that's not good. Luckily, I fixed it all before hopefully anyone noticed. But it's like that game, just from a viewership standpoint, crazy. It was literally just, I think everyone kind of thought, and you can kind of chime in on this, Kendall, 21-6 at halftime. I thought, like, okay, South Carolina's been playing really good football lately.
Mhm.
Well, they get the ball back to start the second half. They're going to kill Missouri.
And we had a conversation about second half defense last week. So I'm sitting there like, yeah, second half defense, they're locking in. Anyway, continue. Sorry,
interrupting. Yeah, you're good. But it felt like, okay, they're going to go for the kill shot here and never let Missouri recover. And then they get the turnover on downs, and that kind of messed things up a bit. It happened a few times in the second half. Missouri woke back up. Give them a lot of credit. They're a good football team, and they gave South Carolina literally everything. They outplayed South Carolina in the second half. But when you needed someone to step up, normally in these situations, it's the defense stepping up to the task in the fourth quarter and kind of shutting things down. But that wasn't the case, really. It was the offense, and more specifically, Lenore Sellers, Rocket Sanders, a bunch of unsung heroes that we hadn't heard of. I mean, when's the last time you heard of Dale Von Campbell or Brady Hunt or Michael Smith? It's been a little while, right? So many different guys on offense made an impact to where you put together 2 go-ahead touchdown drives in the fourth quarter to take the lead not once but twice and win the game. So it was crazy from that standpoint. From a writing standpoint, it does not get much worse than having to cover a game when it's like all this different stuff is going on, and it's like, man, can we just get a result and move on and make life easy? Like this weekend, it's going to be hopefully smooth sailing to write the story. Like I'll be ready by third quarter to have my story published. But is what it is. That's part of the job.
Well, you know what, Jack? I feel like all the fans will say, sorry that your story was a little bit back and forth, but South Carolina came out on top. And the fact that they were able to do that twice, as you mentioned, drive down the field in such a high pressure situation and score, I think the second time it proved that first time that it happened was not a fluke. Like that was meant to be. That was South Carolina proving, okay, our offense, we are here. Like we are a great offense. We have so many talented people a part of this group. And they showed up and they showed out. And that is absolutely massive for South Carolina. And we have to give so much credit, not just to Rocket Sanders, but to Lenora Sellers as well. I have seen so much all over social media all week long since the game about how great Lenora Sellers is. And I just want to say that I hope that these are the same people that have been saying this all season. Like, because we've talked about this before. There was a period of time where people were like, is Lenoris the guy? Is he, really going to be what South Carolina needs at quarterback? Lenoris Sellers is extremely talented. And as I have said multiple times on this show, he is a freshman. So of course it was going to take a little bit of time for him to get situated, to get acclimated to playing at this level and being the starting quarterback for South Carolina. But wow, like major credit to Lenora Sellers. I am so proud of him and so happy for him. He is such a good person, awesome guy, great player, and he deserves this and more. So yeah, if you're saying on Twitter or whatever, like, great job, Lenoris, I hope that, you realize if you were one of the ones saying a month, 2 months ago, Lenoris shouldn't be the guy, good for you for changing your mind. But I hope that, you really see that Lenoris has the ability and the talent to lead this group, because he does.
Well spoken. Well spoken. I couldn't have said any better.
I had to say it. I'm sorry.
You dropped the mic. You did the hard part, which I typically do. But you know what? I like it. Look, he had such a good game on Saturday. 353 yards. Almost 400 total yards of offense, which is crazy for him alone. And then he had the 5 touchdowns. And without question, probably, it is his best statistical game of the year. He just looked phenomenal. And you brought up those 2 drives where he was a huge part of it. There were so many big plays he made. I literally wrote a story about an hour ago, and we'll talk about this when we talk about Dowell Loggains. But I asked Dowell about the one play where he breaks out of the sack on third down and he makes the first down throw to Brady Hunt, and it extends the drive to where Michael Smith catches the first of 2 go-ahead touchdowns that South Carolina scored in the fourth quarter. And it's just like, look, Sellers could have made the easy play and just thrown the ball right to Brady Hunt crossing, on a crossing route. But what ended up happening is Sellers didn't see him, and so he's having to break out of a sack and roll out and make this insane highlight reel play that'll go down on his tape for sure. But when you look at it, it's like, man, he could have made such an easier play had he just seen Brady Hunt crossing past him. But look, a lot of credit needs to be given to Lenoris. I don't even know how many freshman quarterback I could think of off the top of my head that have led 2 touchdown drives like that in the fourth quarter. I mean, we know all the great freshman quarterbacks that are out there, but like, how many of them can say they've done that? You know what I mean? I'm sure there's been a few, but like, Lenoris is legit. And we don't forget what people have said. Like, literally a month ago, like I bring this up almost every stream now, or anytime I talk about South Carolina, people were crapping on Lenoris after the Alabama game, saying, this guy isn't the answer and all this and that. And I'm going to hold that over everyone's head that said that. I don't know who said it specifically, but it's like, you can't, like, look, you have to give this stuff time. It's not going to be a perfect painted picture after game 5 of the season or whatever it was. By this point in the year, you'd like it to be where it is, and that is the case. And he's playing his best football, and look, he deserves all the credit in the world, and so does Dowell Loggains for the great play calling.
Well, and it's okay to change your mind, right? Like if people are looking at it and saying, okay, I don't think that Lenoris is the answer for this program. And now they're like, okay, yeah, but take this as a learning lesson, everybody. Remember, again, this kid is a freshman and he's coming in at the start of the season to take over a program that Spencer Rattler was the leader of last season. Obviously, South Carolina extremely fortunate to have a quarterback like Spencer Rattler play for them for 2 seasons. Now you have Lenoris taking over, and it's not going to be easy, as I've said 100 times on this show, to just step in there and be perfect from day one. So again, huge credit to Lenoris Sellers. Also, just for having the ability to keep moving forward, like that takes strength to be able to keep going when people are sitting there on social media saying all of these things about how you shouldn't be playing and how you should be benched and whatever. And for him to get out there and have his mic drop moments that he's had over the last few weeks is huge. And also Dowell Loggains as well. I want to give credit to him because there have also been people saying that Dowell Loggains isn't the answer. Well, I think Dowell Loggains has done a really good job of making this offense what it is, of getting Lenoris to become more comfortable in the situation that he's in. So again, I'm going to be done with my mic drop moments here in just a minute, but let's also give credit to Dowell Loggains where credit is due. And remember that sometimes in this world where it's always instant, we want things immediately, sometimes you have to wait just a little bit and you will eventually get there. But it's not always something that happens right off the bat where everything is clicking for a team at once. That's not reality. So that's what I have to say today.
Damn, spitting facts. Oh,
I'm sorry. I still love you all. And again, it's totally cool to change your mind and whatever, but just use it as a learning lesson. Like maybe, some patience. And there were plenty of people out there that, were defending and supporting and didn't say those things, but you always have, your few out there that were going off. So just, keep that in mind.
Patience, sports fans, that doesn't really go.
And look, I'm not a patient person either. So I'm going to sit here and say, like, I'm not the most patient person in the world either. I know it's hard. It is not easy for me on a daily basis, but hey, it's just all something we can remember.
Yeah, they've done a great job this season. Like Dowell, man, he was getting slammed, I think, more than Lenoris was, to be honest, because everyone has been calling for Dowell to be fired since like literally almost day one. And look, the whole instant gratification thing is a great point that you bring up. Like, this stuff isn't happening overnight. Like, you can't expect an offense to be scoring 50 points every single game or right out of the gate even. But now that you're seeing South Carolina put it together, it's not just a one-game stretch. It's been like this since, let's think, LSU, they scored a ton of points. Bama, they scored a lot. Ole Miss was like the one exception. But outside of that, they've been scoring at a high rate every single game. And you're seeing this stretch of where South Carolina's had like more than 400 yards of offense for like a 3-game period now in a row. So, and they're doing this against good teams too. It's not like they're doing this against like trash teams. Like, I mean, no disrespect, Wofford is not on the same level as the SEC opponents. So look, I think South Carolina is on a roll right now, and everyone is on the bandwagon of, hey, South Carolina's playing great football. Let's tune in and watch. Like, but don't be coming back or don't be doing this again when South Carolina isn't clicking on all cylinders, right? Like, you got to enjoy the moment and just accept the fact that not everything's going to be peachy and rosy. But hey, that's football and that's life, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And how good did it feel for South Carolina to beat Missouri? Like, this is a game we talked
Finally.
about all year, and it's the last time we're going to talk about it for a long time coming. But we have talked about it so much, how difficult it's been in the past, over these past, several years for South Carolina to beat Missouri. And they did it, and they did it in such an incredible way. And just major hats off to everybody involved, because it's not easy to do that. That's what separates good from great right there, is just being able to come back in those high stress, moments where there's a lot of adversity and you're able to overcome that adversity. So we saw that firsthand with South Carolina on Saturday, and got to give him major props and give huge props to Lenora Sellers, because Wes Mitchell and I have been fans of Lenora since he committed to South Carolina. So it's really great to see him morph into this role that he's taken on for South Carolina, and he's done such a great job. So huge shout out to him. But before we continue any further and talk about what the coordinators had to say today, let's give a shout out to our presenting sponsor of GC Live.
Yep. So right above us here, as Kendall alluded to, Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. So maybe you're like us, living in an apartment, or maybe you just want to buy a house. Like, maybe you're ready to take that big step forward, but you got no idea where to start. I mean, heck, I have no idea where to start, hence why I'm not buying a home anytime soon. However, for the people out there that might be thinking about doing so, give Clint Hammond a call. He'll help you and take you through the entire process, step by step, a real professional at what he does. He's been in the mortgage industry for such a long time now, and he's been a lifelong Gamecock fan and a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. So all those things put together, and you've got the ideal person to help you through the process. So if you're interested, give him a call, 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597, or you can go to ClintHammond.com to find all the right ways to get started with him. So definitely want to thank Clint for being a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central and a wonderful sponsor of GC Live.
Yeah, thank you so much to Clint. As always, we appreciate you and all that you do for Gamecock Central. Jack, let's get into talking about what the coordinators had to say today, not only about the Missouri game, but about the upcoming Wofford game as well. You don't want to look at this Wofford game as just like an easy win for South Carolina and they move on, because those are the trap games where you get in bad situations and, you never know. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But from the coordinators, you did a whole article on it already. So shameless plug, visit GamecockCentral.com. Check out that article. Check out everything else that has gone up on the site today. Always so much content coming your way. But Jack, what were your main takeaways from today's press conferences with Dowell, Loggains, and Clayton White?
Yeah, I think, look, to just be quite frank, there wasn't a ton of, not that it's a bad thing, but there wasn't a ton of talk about Wofford today. It was more so focused on South Carolina. And this whole week's kind of been with Beamer and the coordinators. It's kind of been about the seniors and stuff and a lot of the older guys because, it's senior day on Saturday. So there's been some questions about that. But, they're playing Wofford, and they should win this game, no problem. Like, this should be a game where you get all the backups in who don't normally get to play a ton and see them out there. But in some of the questions asked with Loggains and White today, I'll start out with Dowell. I mean, a lot of the questions did revolve around Lenoris, and obviously I wrote a story on Gamecock Central about a specific play that I just talked about with that third down breaking out of the sack, what Dowell's thoughts were watching in the press box. But look, Sellers is continuing to grow. He is, as we kind of talked about before, how everyone was kind of bashing Sellers for not being the answer in the snap of a finger. Like, that's something Dowell made a point of today, is that, look, it's going to be a process. It's not going to be easy. And, it takes time. And Sellers has done a good job of, as Dowell put it, blocking out the rat poison and being level-headed and mature. I mean, he called him an old soul today. And it makes sense because Lenoris is such a down-to-earth, low-key type of dude, it seems like. And he's doing things that a lot of 19-year-olds probably aren't doing. Like, a lot of 19-year-olds are probably, having a good time, going out, partying and all that. This guy's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, leading on potentially a college football playoff team if some things roll in their favor. But, I think a lot of the talk, like I said, was around Sellers. But One other thing I've wanted to talk about with Dowell before we kind of transition things over to Clayton or talk more about Dowell is the shovel pass play. And what I'm referring to is the final, the final touchdown of the game where South Carolina scored the game-winning touchdown with 15 seconds left to go. And so it was a shovel pass play that South Carolina hadn't ran since the Alabama game. And it was really gutsy. I mean, let's be honest, like a shovel pass to win the game you're right on the doorstep of the goal line. And granted, you had your timeouts and stuff. You could have, if it didn't work, you could have ran something else or whatever. But the fact that it worked and you ran that play there was crazy. And the interesting part about that is, to kind of expand upon what Dowell said, there were 3 guys that were going to touch the ball in that moment. It was either going to be Lenora Sellers, Josh Simon, or the guy who did score the touchdown, Rocket Sanders. And so the fact that they ran that play, again, Dowell said they could have ran a ton of different plays in that moment. But because the shovel pass worked, it gets all the credit for a great play call and stuff. So, look, it felt risky. It felt a little obscure, but it worked. And I think that's all that matters. So, look, it was a greatly called game by Dowell on Saturday. There's going to be people that argue with, what about the fourth down plays where South Carolina didn't get it? And what about Lenore's throwing the pick? And what about the sluggish third quarter and stuff? But you know what? When it came down to it, players made plays. And that's the main thing from Saturday, is that this offense is rolling. And it's not just one person. It's literally pretty much the entire offense from all 11 players. And it's a great play caller in Dowell Loggains.
I just need to go back to the fact that you said South Carolina is a potential college football playoff team, Jack. I'm sure everybody heard what I heard from you, so now you have to explain yourself.
It's real. Look, explain myself. I mean, look, we can talk about this in a bit here, but I think it's possible, right? I mean, people out there want to say they have no chance and stuff, but I mean, like, seriously, no one really knows what is going to happen until we get to Selection Sunday. But like, I'm telling you, like, this just feels like a team that could go out there and have success in the playoffs. Like, I'm not saying they should be in, but with 3 losses, because it's hard to justify that. But I mean, isn't the goal to get the 12 best teams into the playoff? I mean, obviously 4 of them are conference champions, so by default, but I mean, outside of that, are the at-large bids meant for that? So it feels like South Carolina is one of the best teams out there. But hey, as Jeff 2001 says, just win and see what happens, right? Take care of business the next 2 weeks, and we'll see what happens.
Well, some great points there from Dowell Loggains. And obviously, you kind of figured that a lot of this conversation today with him and with Clayton White would have been about that game against Missouri from last Saturday. Obviously, just so much happened. And, we did see the way that the offense was able to respond. And I think that was such a great thing for South Carolina fans to see, as we kind of talked about a little bit earlier on in the show. But I think that there are some unfortunately bad memories that South Carolina fans have where maybe things didn't go exactly as planned and South Carolina lost a game that they should have won or had a chance to come back in or whatever the case might be. So I think just to have what happened on Saturday, come true for South Carolina fans was such a relief and honestly so refreshing. At least I felt that way. And, obviously you and I are a little bit younger, for the fans that have been around for decades and decades and decades, I'm sure that win felt really, really good. And as you mentioned, it was the offense that had to do it. It was the offense that had to kind of come out and they had to stand their ground and they had to get this win for South Carolina, and they were able to do it. And I think we've seen the way that this offense has really grown so far throughout the season. So, clearly the answer to this, I think for a lot of people would be with the offense. You're so impressed with the way that Lenora Sellers has grown this season. But Jack, for you, with the way that this offense has continued to develop, what has impressed you most from game 1 to where we are right now with this offense?
I think there's a lot of things, and I could go a million different directions, but I think the decision-making of Lenoris has to be one of the things at the top of the list, right? Like, we see him in that first game of the year against Old Dominion, and there are so many times where maybe now he'd pass the ball, but he was taking off and running at the first sign of trouble. And then you saw after that, where I think he ran like 22 times against Old Dominion. He ends up, making some smarter decisions against Kentucky. And, he continues to progress. And by week 3 against LSU, he's looking like a completely different quarterback. Then he gets hurt, obviously. But look, over the last few weeks, he's made some really smart decisions. His downfield vision to recognize, I bring up the Brady Hunt pass play where he almost got sacked earlier. Look, that was not a great decision by him, but it worked. And that's the other thing with Sellers is that when he gets into trouble, he's got his legs to rely on. And Dowell Loggains literally called it, I'm trying to pick up the right words here, but eraser qualities, where basically what he means is that even when Sellers looks like he's in a heap of trouble and he's not going to get out of it, he's able to erase any mistakes he can make by extending plays and doing things that not every quarterback can do. So that's one thing. And there's so many different things I would say that attribute to the offensive success. Is there anything you feel like particularly that has been the cause for change?
I mean, I think that the offense just has a lot more cohesion at this point in the season, which you would obviously expect because they have practiced together for longer, they've played together for longer, but I think it's just that comfort level that we're seeing all across the board. And what's really key and what I appreciate, and it's kind of a broad answer, but it's the way that the offense has grown as a whole. And that's huge because sometimes you won't see an offense grow. Like, you will see the best of what the offense has got, maybe towards the beginning of the season, and they're not getting better. And for this group to continue to get better, what seems like week after week after week, and especially in those high pressure situations, I think it speaks to whatever they're doing in practice that's working for them. It speaks to the way that they're being coached that's working for them. And it speaks to the overall culture, because for these guys to be able to have the trust in each other to do what they did on Saturday, I mean, that's a total team effort right there. Of course, we've mentioned multiple names: Rocket Sanders, Lenora Sellers, key guys in being able to allow South Carolina to win on Saturday. But really, it's a full total effort. And I think that that's something that shouldn't be ignored. Like, in the past, that wasn't something you would have necessarily expected out of South Carolina. Now this is becoming an expectation for this offense, which I think speaks volumes to the way that they have grown throughout this season. And that's exactly what you want to see. You don't want to see them stay the same. You don't want to see them get worse. And for South Carolina to continue to get better and to be able to handle those situations, I think that's huge.
Most definitely. Look, it's great to see how good this offense has looked lately. Look, there's been so much struggle over the years with coordinators and getting the offense into a rhythm. But I feel like for the first time in the Shane Beamer era, we are seeing an offense that when you come into a game now, you kind of expect South Carolina to go out here and potentially score 30 points. Like, coming into the year, it was like, all right, well, South Carolina's defense is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting, which they have. But at the same time, it's like lately, and the Missouri game, as we mentioned, is a perfect example. It doesn't always have to be the defense playing Superman to save the day. It can be your literal Superman in Lenora Sellers, or it can be the offense in general, which has really grown and flourished since week 1 to now. So, look, they're playing a lot of complementary football, and when you're doing that and playing well in all 3 phases, for the most part, it's hard to beat a team that is in rhythm like South Carolina is.
And I think there's something to be said for the fact that the defense was getting so much of the credit, and obviously as they should have. Like, they have been fantastic this entire season. But leading up into that Missouri game, like, it was all about the defense and how good South Carolina's defense is and how it's one of the best defenses in the country. Again, all like 100% deserving of that. But I think for the offense to be able to step in and be like, yes, we can pull our weight here too, is massive, because it's not just about creating the trust and the cohesion on the offensive side, but you're also giving your defense a little bit more confidence as well through that. So just to have, like you said, in all 3 phases, such completeness is massive for South Carolina. And I really appreciated seeing that on Saturday. And I just cannot speak enough to how impressed I was with the offense to be able to do that and to have, the ability to overcome the adversity, the ability to have the strength to keep moving forward when you have to do that twice, drive down the field to put your team back in a position to win the game. not easy by any stretch of the imagination. So anyways, anything you want to add from what Dowell Loggains said before we get into our next sponsor read and talk about the defense a little bit?
Well, I don't think Dowell Loggains is getting fired anytime soon. So hopefully Gamecock fans are ready to have him back next year with open arms.
Hey, I think he did a great job on Saturday.
He's done fantastic. Like, in all seriousness, he's done a really good job. Like, this isn't some new thing. Like, I honestly think probably since the LSU game, the offense has really been in sync. And look, if Sellers doesn't get hurt in that LSU game, I know everyone wants to blame the game on the refs and stuff, but I really think South Carolina wins that game in spite of the refs if Lenoris is healthy and out there because of how well the offense was playing before injury. So, look, not to go back to that, but that is kind of where things have really picked up for the offense. And we've seen Dowell, as the seasons wore on, be really comfortable in calling any plays. It's gotten to a point where he called a shovel pass play for the game-winning touchdown. So that should tell you just how good things have been going.
Well, we talked about Dowell Loggains. We talked about Lenoris Sellers. And, of course, I had to have my moment talking about, you know, giving them a little bit of a break, but also making sure that you're giving them the credit that they deserve right now. I'm not even going to get into talking about Shane Beamer on that side of things because I've already put out a tweet about that. I'm not going to get into it. Like, everybody knows how I feel about that situation as well. But same thing there because he has received flack also recently. And I think that I haven't heard very much of that over the last few weeks.
Now, we might need to clean our ears. Might need to check that out.
Yeah, it's funny how that goes away a little bit when you're winning. Anyways, okay, so let's get into our sponsor read here before we continue on with the show, Jack.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and talk about our good friends over at Prize Picks. So if you don't know anything about these guys, Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in all of North America. They're the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. So it's just you against the numbers. So instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And then, of course, you watch the winnings roll in. Prize Picks has quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types. It's what makes Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. I've used Prize Picks plenty of times in the past, whether it's for baseball, basketball, hockey, football, obviously, NFL, college football, literally just about any sport you could think of, anything you want to get involved in the game with and have some fun while doing it. Prize Picks is definitely the way to go. I would 100% recommend it. So just go to prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app and use the code GC on screen, which stands for Gamecock Central, to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 in lineup. So I want to thank Prize Picks for being a sponsor of Gamecock Central.
All right, weekly check-in. Jack Veltri, how are your teams doing?
To be honest,
I wish that I could have just had a screenshot right there of your face because you were not happy with me asking that question.
Well, actually, I do have stuff to be happy about because number one, the Bills are playing great football. They just beat the Chiefs. Yes. So that's something to be happy about. Now, the Islanders, look, I seriously probably should check into hockey, but why should I when the Islanders are an absolute train wreck right now and blew a third period lead and lost in a shootout to the Flames yesterday. So, look, I got nothing to be happy about with hockey. Like, it's great and all. I know the Canes are doing well and all. That's wonderful. But baseball is not going on right now. I don't really care much about NBA or anything like that. So it's really the Bills and nothing else right now. And then obviously my job covering South Carolina.
I will be trading in my Stanley Cup for the actual Stanley Cup in December. I am so excited. So that's my exciting sports news outside of the world of South Carolina. I cannot wait. I always said I don't think I will ever get close to a Stanley Cup, but I will actually get to be around the Stanley Cup in December. So I'm very excited. Shout out to the Florida Panthers for that one. Cannot wait. We get to have it in Charlotte because the Charlotte Checkers are the AHL affiliate of the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. So very much looking forward to that. But yeah, Jack, unfortunate loss yesterday for the Islanders, but shout out to the Bills. And really quickly, I want to give a huge shout out to Khalil Shakir. I know he's not watching this, but thank you so much for contributing the way that you have to my fantasy team this year. You are awesome, and I appreciate it. Also, I just made major moves as the general manager of my fantasy team. So guys, trade deadline's coming up, and we are in crunch time right now for fantasy football. Anyway.
Now, I will ask you about hockey and stuff I was so confused what you were talking about with the Stanley Cup earlier. I'm like, Kendall, the Stanley Cup is not till June. But anyway, The outdoor games are at Truist Field this weekend, right?
Yes.
South Carolina's playing. Do you want to shamelessly plug what's going on there?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to. I'm so excited because last year at Truist Field, which is home of the Charlotte Knights, that's where I work. They're the Chicago White Sox AAA affiliate. We put an ice rink on our field every single year. So last year we had the Queen City Outdoor Classic between the Rochester Americans and the Charlotte Checkers. It was sold out. It was crazy. It was amazing. So this year we are doing more outdoor hockey starting tomorrow, and South Carolina will be in town on Saturday night. I know obviously there's a game between South Carolina and Wofford on Saturday as well, but South Carolina, NC State, 7 p.m. Truist Field on Saturday night. Friday's App State, Charlotte, and then tomorrow is Duke and Vanderbilt. I'm very much looking forward to these games. I love some outdoor hockey. It's a blast, and I'm super excited to have South Carolina play here. I know that oh my gosh, it's perfect timing. I'm so excited.
Man.
I know they've got a great game, so I'm really, really looking forward to it.
Oh, we love it. We love to hear it. Hopefully the weather is, I would assume, nice and cold, right? I mean, it's been kind of chilly out lately, so.
It's been better. Yeah, it's kind of gray outside today, but it's been a little bit better. I was kind of worried like 2 weeks ago. It was still a little toasty here in Charlotte, so I think we're doing good. We have chillers, which obviously keeps the ice frozen, and I'm actually looking at it right now, which is really cool. So yeah, it's good stuff, and I'm looking forward to the outdoor hockey, and especially to have South Carolina here on Saturday. So if you have nothing to do on Saturday, which I know all of you have something to do, you've got a game to watch, then maybe come watch another game, South Carolina and NC State. But yeah, the Stanley Cup, I know that probably didn't make sense in the moment, but the actual Stanley Cup is coming to Charlotte as well on December 21st. So I'll get to see it then and trade in this Stanley Cup for the real Stanley Cup. But I don't think I can actually, I'm going to have to wear the gloves or whatever the tradition is because I didn't earn the Stanley Cup. I'm just fortunate enough to have the chance to be able to see it. So anyways, all right, let's talk some defense here. We also heard, of course, from Clayton White earlier today in our weekly coordinators press conference. Jack looks like he's looking something up right now. So
I was trying to answer the question about club hockey. It actually seems like let's see. I'm just sorry to pull this up. Let's see. Win. Seems like they've won a few games. Honestly, just go to cockhockey.com to find your answer, EXO. But anyway, let's talk some defense. I want to talk about how
defense.
Yeah, how Saturday went, because that was interesting, I think.
Okay, let's talk about it. So we heard from Clayton White. What were his thoughts, reactions, comments to the way that South Carolina's defense played on Saturday?
Yeah, look, obviously South Carolina kind of started the game out on their heels, like he alluded to, because Missouri was really doing whatever they wanted on offense in the first quarter, kind of driving up and down the field. I mean, with a banged up Brady Cook and an offense that, hasn't been great, they looked really solid. Like the run game was great, and Brady Cook was doing whatever he wanted to with some time in the pocket. And South Carolina was lucky to give up some field goals early, but kind of once the second quarter started, the defense played a lot better. And then third and fourth quarter were more of a dogfight, as he put it. But they came away victorious. That's all that matters. And again, like I said before, like we said, the defense, it is a part of the reason why South Carolina won this game. But, let's be real. The offense is really the main reason why South Carolina was able to come out victorious in the end, because you have a 21-6 lead. And I know the offense didn't help itself and help the team with some fourth down turnover on downs. But overall, when push came to shove, the offense was the one kind of doing the heavy lifting for a change in that fourth quarter. And then in the final minutes, after South Carolina took the 27-22 lead for the first go-ahead touchdown, Jalen Kilgore obviously is on the other end of giving up that touchdown to Luther Burden, which looked like it's 30-27 Missouri with a minute to go. That kind of seemed like, okay, that's going to be the dagger for South Carolina that we've seen so many times before. And I thought this was interesting what Clayton said. The worst thing you can do in that situation is to beat a guy down. And what he means by that is to just tear into him and kind of just be mad at him. But look, in the heat of the moment, I can understand if he was, but obviously he wasn't. So when the offense went out there and scored again to take the 34-30 lead, it was really nice to see Jalen get his moment of redemption with the game-sealing interception. And, again, the credit needs to go to the offense for taking the lead back, because that was really impressive to see how complimentary of football this team played.
Yes, when Missouri went up 30-27, I think that is when my heart rate started to exponentially increase at that moment. But, that happens, and that's why it's good to have a defense that can pick up your offense when they need it. And it's good to have an offense that can pick up your defense a little bit when they need it. And that's what we saw on Saturday. Again, very complimentary football for South Carolina. It wasn't the best game defensively for this group, and I think we can all agree on that. But, you can't expect perfection every single week. Obviously, a little bit more of a struggle, though, for them in the second half. And, it's something we talked about last week on the show, Jack, how good the defense has been in the second half of games this season. Not quite, though, this past Saturday. What was different about it?
I think, just like I said before, Missouri was able to really run the football the way they wanted to. Like, if you told any South Carolina fan that Missouri would win the rushing battle and they'd score 30 points, I think you'd feel like, oh, okay, South Carolina is probably not winning this game. But they did, and that's the craziest part. And so you're wondering, like, how did they do it? I think some of the struggles were, like I said, the run game for Missouri was great. Brady Cook had a lot of time to throw in the pocket. Like, I think Missouri's offensive line, I know they were missing their starting center, and I know they haven't been great against good competition on defense. But Missouri, I mean, look, South Carolina was like Shane Beamer and stuff were saying that's probably the best offensive line they played this season. And there are a lot of good offensive lines in the SEC. But you know what? And this is another good point brought up. Like, you can't stop every team every week. You're going to go through some struggles. And unfortunately, South Carolina went through some struggles. But you know what? The offense was able to persevere. You were still able to get the win. And so even on when you didn't have your fastball, you were still able to have your off-speed pitches in your back pocket and throw them for strikes. So the baseball analogy kind of works in this case. And I think the defense, it didn't have its greatest stuff. But you know what? I think back to the final drive where Kyle Kennard gets the sack and then Kilgore gets the interception. But another drive or a series of plays that was huge was in the first quarter or second quarter, where Sellers throws the pick, and then Missouri's in plus territory, has a chance to score to take the lead. And what does South Carolina's defense do? They force a 3-and-out, and TJ Sanders gets a huge sack on third down. Mm-hmm. And then Missouri kicks a field goal that doesn't make it to the upright. So, look, a lot of credit needs to be given to the offense, but the defense, even when it wasn't great, there were still enough moments in this game to where it's like, yeah, they did their job.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Yeah, it is a great point. Like, as I said, you cannot expect perfection every single week, but in several key moments, the defense was able to do what they needed to do for South Carolina, which is absolutely massive. Want to talk about some other things here before we finish our show here today, Jack, but anything else you would like to hit on defensively for South Carolina?
I think just the other thing that we need to mention with what worked for the defense on Saturday, even though they didn't have their best stuff, because I asked Clayton about the series in the first half where I just mentioned Sellers threw the interception and then the defense got the stop. How did they do it? Like, what does Clayton have to say in that situation to his team? To, like, does he get them fired up? Does he have to coach speak them? I'm not sure. But basically what he talked about in answering the question was that, the mindset all year has been to PTBD, which stands for put the ball down. And look, you have to put the ball down in play is basically what he said. You have to have that put the fire out mentality. And that's 2 games in a row where they've made a stop with no points allowed on a short field. And he's right. Look, the defense, even when it's not perfect, they're still good enough to make plays. And that's definitely the other thing that stood out to me. But overall, look, the defense wasn't perfect, but you know what? They got the win, and they're 7-3 on the year now. So you can only really go up from here.
Yeah, it's been a great stretch of games for South Carolina and so much fun to watch. And obviously this weekend is Senior Day for the Gamecocks, which is so exciting. So many guys that deserve recognition and credit for all that they have done for the program. And they're playing Wofford as well. And, you would hope that you get to a point in this game, if you're South Carolina, where you get ahead by enough to where you're able to put in some guys this weekend that maybe we don't see all the time. So who are some of those guys that you would like to see, Jack, play this weekend that maybe you haven't seen a ton of so far this season?
I think number one on the list is a fan favorite amongst Gamecock fans, Luke Doty. Let's see him. Look, he hasn't really played much at all this year, quite honestly. And, he's been a guy that's been through he's kind of like the carry-on Joyner in a lot of ways, where started out as a quarterback, moved to wide receiver, and now he's this athlete for South Carolina. He hasn't played much at all this year. Let's see him get his recognition, go out there, score a touchdown, maybe even play a little bit of quarterback. That'd be pretty cool. Other than that, I'd like to see Davis Bevel get in there and make some plays. That'd be really cool as a sixth-year guy. And I'm trying to think of who else hasn't really played much that could make an impact. I don't know. Is there anyone you could think of that you would like to see?
I was going to say Luke Doty, 100%. I mean,
gotta be.
Just be awesome. Just to see him and, what he's done and a local guy, from the state of South Carolina and just how loved he is by this Gamecock community as a whole. I think it would be only fitting to see him out there and hopefully make a big play or two on Saturday. That would be extremely exciting. But yeah, massive shout out to all of the seniors. Obviously, it's an emotional day and it's an exciting day for all of them. And again, they deserve all of the credit that they are going to receive this weekend. It's always so much fun, but a little bit bittersweet on senior day for the Gamecocks. And I think for a lot of the people watching, I remember for us, Jack, when we were seniors, I was sad. Senior day was against Tennessee, but that sadness didn't last too long because it was such an exciting game.
Yeah, it's it's always a special day, and look, it's going to be really cool to see all these guys go out there, and hopefully they all get to play. I would really like to see the walk-ons get a chance to play in this game and stuff. Those guys specifically. We do have a question here. I think it's interesting. How many of the guys are seniors / draft eligible? There's a lot of guys that definitely are draft eligible. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I do remember putting the math together, and I think they have 22 guys that are out of eligibility after this season. So that's a lot of sixth year, fifth year, fourth year guys that came in after the COVID season and stuff. So there's obviously a ton of other guys that could be draft eligible, like Niki Minwari's the number one guy that comes to mind and stuff. But you're going to be losing a lot of these older guys on the defense, especially, and we'll see what happens. But for right now, it'll be really cool to see all these guys go out there, and hopefully everyone gets in the game. Because, again, it's not like an SEC game where you can only dress a certain amount of people. You can have everyone dressed for this game. So hopefully everyone gets a shot to play. Seniors first, maybe get some freshmen in there. I'm not sure, but it should be a really fun day at Williams-Brice Stadium, hopefully.
Yeah, and as one era of Gamecock football kind of comes to a close with Senior Day on Saturday, the world of recruiting stays busy for South Carolina. So again, shameless plug, check out the recruiting rundown because this is kind of the last opportunity this weekend for South Carolina to impress at Williams-Brice Stadium. Some of those recruits that are coming out, they had a big weekend against Missouri as well. So Wes and Chris do a great job of keeping you all up to date with what's going on in the world of recruiting. And of course, we will have so much transfer portal news coming your way in not too long from now.
Joy.
Not quite ready for that yet. Hopefully some news, but hopefully not too much news. You know what I mean? There's always that fine line, Jack.
They're gonna have to make so many changes probably because, again, I think we forget how many guys are gonna be gone from this defense. Let's just get on the list. Odie Fortune, trying to think, Bam Martin Scott, Debo Williams, Demetrius Knight. That's your entire linebacker core right there. Kyle Kennard, Tonka, Boogie. TJ Sanders probably. There's so many guys on this defense and even on offense too that you're going to be losing. So Josh Simon, Gage Larvin, guys like that, some of your offensive linemen. So look, South Carolina's got a lot of holes to fill in the offseason, but you know what? Let's put the offseason on the wayside for right now. South Carolina's done a great year. And so you know what? Let's talk, where do we think they're going to go for a bowl game? Because the transfer portal,
Jack, that was awful. My line from me.
I had to. I cannot talk about the portal. Covering that last year.
Jack is anything but the portal.
Anything but the portal. That was please. Anything that I do not like about my job, the portal is probably number one. But
the portal is an exhausting time.
It's because you just never know when guys are going to transfer. It's crazy. So, and we already got comments from where we think or where people think South Carolina is going to go. Definitely comment below where you think. Kendall, would you like to share first?
I would love for South Carolina to go to Orlando. I have said this. I still think the same. I still think that they will end up at a bowl game in Florida. I do. Of course, as of this point in the season, we'll have to see what happens with the last 2 games of the year. I would love to see South Carolina play in the Citrus Bowl. It would be amazing. And I was having that conversation with Wes Mitchell earlier today. We were talking. And I'm like, yeah, I really want them to go to the Citrus Bowl, but I don't know. Like, I guess it depends on how the college football playoff shakes out, because it depends on which SEC team is the highest ranked that doesn't make the playoff. So can South Carolina be that team? They could, but I guess it just depends on who's making the playoff. That's where I would like for them to go, though, and I think that they have a shot.
I think so. And I think the one team right now that if the season were to end today, based on the college football playoff rankings, it'd probably be Tennessee going to the Citrus Bowl. Again, so many things can change over the next few weeks. Like Tennessee could get right back into the playoff, and maybe I'm trying to think who would be like the first team out. Maybe Texas A&M, but at the same time, it might actually end up being South Carolina, because depending on what happens with A&M, I think A&M's either going to drop below South Carolina with a loss to Texas, or if they beat Texas, they'll be in the college football playoff probably. So that won't be much of a concern. And then it's just about, okay, what other SEC teams might fall out of the fold? Because I feel like one probably will. And I think it's going to be Tennessee, honestly. I think South Carolina, more likely than not, to just be realistic. I know I talked playoff before. I think they're probably going to finish somewhere. It would not shock me if they finished 13th. Like straight up. It would not shock me if they finished 13th, because that's how this season's been.
I'm laughing through the pain. Don't say that.
I know. But you know what?
Sad.
Citrus Bowl.
It would be happy but sad.
Yes. Citrus Bowl would be awesome. I was about to say Birmingham for whatever reason. I don't know why that would have almost come out of my mouth. No. Tampa would be really cool, but we'll see. I think they're going to Florida. We'll see what happens.
We've said the same thing for a couple weeks now, either Orlando or Tampa, depending on how things go with the college football playoff. Because if it's not Orlando, I think it would be Tampa. Like, I think if Tennessee's your team going to the Citrus Bowl, then South Carolina will be in Tampa. I'm completely fine with either one of them, by the way. I think that they're both great. I just want it to be somewhere that is warm and sunny.
Yes,
that's
please.
my request. So, yeah, we'll have to see how it shakes out. Of course, next week, a week from today, when we have the show right before Thanksgiving, we will be talking about the game that everybody has circled on their calendar, South Carolina at Clemson. I can't wait for that conversation, Jack.
Yeah, man, that's going to be it. It's kind of weird how there haven't been more questions this week about the Clemson game from the media and stuff. Like, obviously the focus is on Wofford, but it's hard not to be like, just ready for Clemson week to get here. That's going to be really exciting. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a lot of fun. That game, if things continue to shake out the way they are, that might be a top 15 matchup potentially. At worst, top 20, but that's going to be.
What do you think, really quickly, because next week we probably won't want to talk about this because we're just going to want to talk about the game, but what do you think about this game being played on Friday? Like, okay,
I'm down with it.
I am too. Like, I think that this game deserves a 7 p.m. start.
Yes,
like,
it
if
does.
that has to be on Friday, then so be it. Yeah. But I'm so not into the noon start. Like, neither
am I. Like, realistically, like, all right, I've said it many times before. I enjoy the noon start from a work standpoint, but let's be real. I'd rather prefer this to be at night for the fan viewership perspective, because this is a huge game. And the fact that Florida and Florida State are the night game, and I know that's on ESPN2, and South Carolina doesn't deserve to be on ESPN2. They deserve to be on ABC, ESPN, whatever it is. But it's like noon, just it feels a little But for Friday, look, I don't know exactly what the reason is why South Carolina and Clemson won't play on a Friday. I think it's partially probably because one of the two teams doesn't want to play on Friday. I've heard that Clemson just doesn't want to have to give up a home game on Saturdays to play on Friday instead. But think about it, like Georgia and Georgia Tech are now on Fridays, and they're going to be playing in a primetime slot on ABC on Friday night next week. So that could be South Carolina, but it's not for whatever reason.
See, if it were me, and obviously I'm not a football coach, so just take this as you will, I would want to play in prime time, even if it were on a Friday. That's the best opportunity to showcase your university. It's the best opportunity to showcase your atmosphere, your environment at night. If you're at Clemson, if you're at South Carolina, whatever it is, like my question would be, wouldn't you want that? Like, don't you think that that atmosphere is better? Because everybody knows, like, night games are more fun. They're just more fun.
Yeah, we can't.
That's my opinion, but I would bet that most people agree with that statement.
Yeah, we can't speak for Clemson though. We don't know what goes on over there. The decision making there is completely different from what South Carolina. I'm sure South Carolina, if this game were at home this year for Carolina, I'm sure they would want to play it on a Friday. Like, again, all the exposure and stuff, they've gotten so much of it this year. But people would truly get to see, like, okay, nothing on a Friday night. Let's watch South Carolina play Clemson at Willie B. Oh man, look at that environment. Instead, Clemson. I mean, hey, have fun with your noon game, but
right. And then like you're the center of attention on Friday as well. Like it's Friday after Thanksgiving, nobody's working, everyone's waiting for that game. Like everyone's excited. When you're noon on Saturday, you and however many other schools, like you know what I mean. Like you might be the best matchup at noon on Saturday, but you and however many other schools are also playing at noon on Saturday. So you're coming right off the heels of College Game Day. I'm watching College Game Day until it's over. Like right until it's over, I'm watching College Game Day. And then you're going into your game and it's not the same. It's not the same vibe. And especially if Ohio State is playing at noon, because I feel like Ohio State always plays at noon.
They are. Next week,
that's a huge competitor. Like it doesn't matter, Ohio State, Michigan. Okay, that's a huge competitor now. And you have to deal with that. Why wouldn't you just play on Friday when all of the attention is on you?
Again, we can't make these decisions.
I don't make the decisions. I just sit here and talk.
Clemson, if it was ultimately Clemson, I feel like that's just not like, yeah, you're going to still play on Saturday, and yeah, your fans are going to show up regardless. So I don't understand the logic. You know what? It is what it is. It actually gives South Carolina probably more of an advantage that this game's during the day anyway. So whatever. I mean, look, the last time this game was at Clemson, it was a noon kick, and look what happened. And South Carolina, I think, is the better team this year. So see what happens. Should be a lot of fun. But either way, we'll be there and have a lot to talk about.
Yes, I remember that noon kick from just a couple of years ago. Came back, and I had all these great intentions once we got back to Columbia to go have such a fun night. South Carolina, they beat Clemson. But you know what it's like, Jack. You are waking up so early. I think we left at like 5:30 in the morning to get there. And by the time I got back from that game at 6 o'clock at night, I was like, yes, this is going to be a great night.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. The good news is
at like 7 o'clock.
Gosh, the good news is I'll actually already be in Clemson the night before because my brother goes to school out there, and my parents are going to stay out in Greenville, going to the game and stuff. So I'll already be there. So I'll get to. I don't have to go through. Yeah, I don't have to go through the struggle of waking up at 5:30 in the morning. Though I'll have to still wake up early. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Well, we will talk plenty more about Clemson. I promise you about that game between Clemson and South Carolina coming up. But for this week, South Carolina's focus, it's on Wofford. It's on Senior Day, and they're still celebrating a great win over Missouri from last weekend. We're hitting the hour mark here on GC Live. So we're going to go ahead and say to you guys, have a great day. We appreciate all of you watching. Thank you so much. We hope you have a great rest of your week. So for Jack Veltri, I'm Kendall Smith. This has been GC Live here on Gamecock Central, and we will see you guys soon.